Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are cracking open one of the biggest, most persistent controversies in the world of nutrition, the humble egg. For decades, it's been this breakfast champion for some and a total dietary villain for others. So, what is the real story?
I mean, this is the question, right? Is it a perfect, harmless breakfast staple, or is it a ticking time bomb for your heart? The science has felt so scrambled for years, and it's left most of us pretty confused. We've been told they're this amazing source of protein, but then, in the same breath, we're warned they're a cholesterol bomb, just waiting to clog our arteries. The advice has been anything but sunny side up.
And if you've ever felt that kind of nutrition science whiplash, believe me, you are not alone. It seems like one year eggs are a huge danger, and the very next, they're perfectly fine. This flip-flopping you see in the media is exactly why so many of us are just left throwing our hands up, wondering what to believe.
But what if I told you the answer isn't a simple yes or no? It's actually more like a scientific detective story, and it is complete with changing suspects and some really surprising plot twists. So let's grab our magnifying glasses and get started with the very first clue.
Okay, so our investigation has to start with the original charge against the egg. It's cholesterol. This is really where the entire controversy kicked off. So, Getty loaded this number, 186 milligrams. That's how much cholesterol is packed into a single large egg yolk. Now, for the longest time, the recommended daily limit was under 300 milligrams, so just one egg put you more than halfway there for the entire day. Seemed like an open and shut case, right? Well, here's the first major plot twist. Scientists started to realize they were confusing two totally different things. You see, there's the cholesterol you eat in your food. That's called dietary cholesterol. And then there's the cholesterol that's already in your blood, which, by the way, is mostly made by your own liver. And it turns out, for most of us, the cholesterol you eat doesn't really have a huge impact on the cholesterol levels in your blood. You want to know the bigger culprits for raising that bad blood cholesterol? Saturated and trans fat. So, with dietary cholesterol pretty much off the hook, the scientific detectives had to start looking elsewhere. The whole investigation started to turn away from the egg itself and, well, toward its accomplices. And this shift became totally official back in 2015. That's when the US dietary guidelines just straight up dropped the specific limit on dietary cholesterol. They basically acknowledged that the science just didn't support it anymore. The focus moved from obsessing over a single nutrient to looking at the bigger picture, our overall dietary pattern, and more specifically, how much saturated fat we're taking in. And this quote from the Mayo Clinic really just hits the nail on the head. Was the egg really the problem, or was it the company it was keeping? I mean, think about it. When you picture a classic egg breakfast, what comes to mind? Bacon, sausage, buttered toast, all things that are super high in saturated fat and salt. The poor egg was basically being blamed for the crimes of its platemates. Now, just when the case seemed to be getting a little clearer, a brand new, really complex clue emerged from a place nobody expected: our gut. So researchers discovered this pretty fascinating chain reaction that all starts with a nutrient in eggs called choline. It basically works like this. When you eat eggs, certain bacteria that live in your gut take that choline and they convert it into a compound called TMA. Then, from there, your liver grabs that TMA and turns it into something called TMAO, which then gets into your bloodstream. And here's why this became such a huge deal. Researchers started following thousands of people for years, and they found this startling connection. The more TMAO someone had floating around in their blood, the higher their risk was for major cardiovascular events like heart attacks. And just like that, the egg was a suspect again, but for a completely new and different reason. So it seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Eggs lead to choline, which leads to TMAO, which is linked to heart disease. So, should we all just ditch eggs for good? Well, like any good detective story, there's always more to it. And here is where the plot thickens again. A big study funded by the National Institutes of Health looked directly at this, and they confirmed that, yep,
Eating eggs does raise your TMAO levels. However, and this is a really huge however, they did not find an increase in the key warning signs for heart disease risk, like inflammation. So this suggests the connection isn't a simple cause and effect thing. The science is still very much evolving on this. All of this brings us to the final and honestly the most important part of our investigation. The truth is, there is no single verdict on eggs that just applies to everybody. The real answer depends entirely on you and your overall diet. Just take a look at this breakdown from some of the leading health organizations. The American Heart Association says, for most healthy adults, up to 1 egg a day is totally fine. Diabetes Canada notes that eggs can be part of a healthy daily diet for people with diabetes. And the Cleveland Clinic suggests that if you already have heart disease or high cholesterol, you might want to limit how many yolks you have. See? The advice is tailored. It's not one size fits all. And how you eat your eggs matters just as much as if you eat them. Poaching or boiling an egg is worlds away from frying it in a giant pool of butter. And pairing them with some spinach and avocado and whole grain toast, that creates a completely different meal than serving them next to processed sausage and bacon. Context is absolutely everything. Okay, so we've examined the old cholesterol file, we've investigated the whole TMAO connection, and we've considered the context. So let's weigh all the evidence and deliver the final verdict in this very long-running case. So on one hand, eggs are a nutritional powerhouse. Seriously, for just about 78 calories, you get 6 grams of high-quality protein, vitamin D, that essential nutrient choline, and even antioxidants that are great for your eyes. But on the other hand, they are a source of cholesterol and some saturated fat. That whole TMAO link is still being figured out. And let's be honest, their association with unhealthy breakfast foods is a real factor to consider. So in the end, it seems like we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. It's not about whether an egg, all by itself, is good or bad. It's about the big picture. An egg can be a part of an incredibly healthy meal, or it can be part of a very unhealthy one. The power and the choice is ultimately on your plate.